One. Welcome back to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. It is another special interview this week for us. We're kind of just speaking before we went on there. We're kind of at the opposite ends of the scale in terms of weather here. I'm freezing cold over here in the UK. It's -4, but my guest, a very special guest at this time as well, is kind of in a bit of a dangerous situation at the moment over in I think Los Angeles way, I believe. It is Shelly Martinez first. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, thank you. And I want to start off by saying I am an asshole. I am an asshole and I owe you an apology because we had this interview set up. And here's the thing. I was going through like all this stuff for like a week. And when I was supposed to do your interview, that was the first day I was able to finally just like chill. And I was like, I'm gonna walk my dog longer and this feels great. And then when I got home, I went, oh, I was supposed to do the interview. And so I'm an asshole and I'm so sorry.
You have nothing to apologize about. Don't worry. These things happen, and look, at the end of the day, you're here now. That's all that matters, and we're when we're talking. So that's
Well,
that's
it means a lot to me to look you in your virtual eyes and tell you I'm really sorry. I'm really, really sorry. I felt like such a jerk because I take podcasting very serious. I've been doing it since 2009. So there's so many levels of disappointment within myself I had. So I'm just so sorry about that.
honestly, it's not a problem at all. Absolutely fine. These things happen, and at the end of the day, as I say, we're talking now, and that's the main thing, and that's all. That's all
Totally.
that matters. So that's all good. But Shelley, look, 20. It was now 2025, actually. I don't know how much you watch of wrestling nowadays, but in terms of 2024 and on what you watched of it, how do you think the women were being portrayed? Because obviously, I know we're going to get into when you were there, it was an uphill struggle for you guys, and we'll get into that. But do you think, I mean, my personal opinion was it was good, it went through peaks and troughs depending on the company. So we're big fans of TNA here. Their knockouts division is always great. Big fans of NWA. Then women's division is stacked up and they always have a focus on it. The other two companies, WWE and AEW, I feel was like this up and down, up and down, up and down. Sometimes it depended on the people complaining on social media that they didn't get enough of it. But I don't know. What do you think about it?
That's a I don't think much of it because I don't think about it, but now that you're bringing it up, that's a good point. You're right. It seems like the other companies you mentioned, TNA, NWA, what was the third one?
And that was the two that are doing really well. And then it's
Oh,
WWE
okay.
and AEW that was
Okay,
like,
so those two companies, first of all, I have been so impressed as far as social media goes with NWA. Now, I haven't really watched wrestling for many, many years. And it's not because I'm all bitter. It's just that when I, even when I was in wrestling, I would get my wrestling fix, like the fan in me. I would get that by watching at shows I was at.
yeah.
So I wasn't really one to really go home and rewatch Raw or SmackDown or ECW or TNA for that matter. So my keeping up, I guess, with wrestling now has just been for years, social media, like especially Instagram, like whatever.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends are now in NWA. That's why I've been paying attention to them this past year. I am so blown away at the women and what they're doing over there. Like I am like, what freaking Camille? Like I wrote her on one of her posts. I was like, I am so sad that I didn't get to work with you when I was in wrestling because she to me is like a dream opponent. Like she's the kind of gal, in my opinion, that you could have an amazing feud with,
Mm.
and then you can come together and tag team. And then when that runs its course, you can have one of them turn on the other. And it's very special when you can have that dynamic with a worker. Um, Very special. But I feel Camille can almost do that with anyone. She doesn't have to just have that special connection with somebody in the ring.
Mm.
She's so good. And just watching all the other women on there, but I just want to highlight her. And then with okay, so NWA and the TNA, Dude, I was there when I
Yeah.
feel like they were really starting to take the women's stuff to a different level. And so when I see things online, I'm like, dude, yes, you go, girls. And then what's even more awesome to me is when I see gals I worked with, and some of them I only got to know during my WWE days.
Hmm.
So they went and thrived in WWE for a while. And then when they started to go other places, it was like, yeah, dude, you belong in a place like that, like TNA. Like a Mickey James is good for TNA. And I know
Yeah.
she was in TNA way back in the day, and that's like cool for full circle, but not many people know that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, oh, and then the girls that go to, I think it's so amazing. And I wish that when I was in TNA, I could have been wrestling more. I'm
Hmm.
fine with what I did. Like I'm satisfied with it. But damn it, I love wrestling so much. Like I love wrestling. And people don't know that about me because they haven't really seen my in-ring performance because most of my shows that I've wrestled at have been in indie shows.
Yeah.
So now going back to AEW, which I'm not I'm like the least familiar with AEW
Mhm.
and WWE. I think you make such a good point. Yeah. There's ebbs and flows. It seems at some point it's going to this like this way, like that would you would say NWA TNA does. But then it kind of like pauses.
Mhm.
Like it,
Yeah.
and then when like you said enough people bitch about it, they're like, ah, fine, okay, over here. Point in case, look at how many times WWE has gone from PG to like
Yeah.
PG-13. Like they keep going. It's like, which one are you gonna pick? Is it, oh, you know better, now you're gonna do better? Or like, no, no. Now, maybe part of it has to do with sponsors because we have to remember these are
Yeah.
the shows on television. So that could also be playing a part in it too. Maybe it's not so, oh, they suck because they never do this. Maybe they make those decisions based on advertisers and the different advertisers they have versus an NWA and a TNA. That could be a thing too, because at the end of the day, it's all money, right?
Yeah.
So, especially to freaking WWE, you know? So it's like, now that I think of it that way, it makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, WWE recently went onto Netflix. I mean, that's just in my being a wrestling fan. I mean, how old am I now? 40. So I don't know, 30, maybe 30 odd years being a fan. I never would have thought the day that wrestling is streaming and we're seeing so many apps and whatnot. And it is a crazy world now. Now you can just pick up a phone and you can just watch whatever that you wanted. But going back to when you was in it, and I made the point earlier on because we're seeing a lot more when the women do get the sort of TV time on WWE now. They do get a lot. Liv Morgan's done a lot with Rhea Ripley. There's been a big storyline that's gone on for months and months and months and months with that. We've had this more stuff on SmackDown, but when you girls were in it back in those days, it felt like every time you guys had to get a 90-second promo on a SmackDown or etc that you had to fight and claw just to get that time. Is that a fair assumption?
You know, I think it is. For me, I was, in my opinion, a different kind of case
Hmm.
because of my character
Yeah.
and my place on the card. And also, I was very comfortable with that. I wasn't trying to, no offense, but we all know this happens to some, not everyone. I'm not one to politic and be like, I need more TV time. I want this. I want the women's title, blah, blah, blah. I was like, holy crap. I get to be a effing vampire. Like I am a vampire and I get to be a vampire on TV. So I didn't experience it myself, but dude, you don't think I was watching everything around me when I was in that circus? Like when I talk about things, sometimes people maybe think I'm being bitter. I'm talking about myself. It's like, dude, I actually had it pretty good. I was pretty, besides me getting my own self in trouble, low profile, but I watched. I watched, I heard conversations. I was like a little fly on the wall when I was in WWE, let me tell you, because I was so intrigued by how everything was working. And I would see the women fighting for the same amount of TV time that's deserved, like in a promo that a guy would get. Now I get it. There's more men than women, so of course the dudes are going to get more time. That's math. It's just math.
Yeah.
But going back to your point, like a quick 90-second promo, when it's like a top dude, it's almost like, in my opinion, what I saw was like, okay, more relaxed, or like let them do their thing. But when it was like the women, it was like, well, you only got X amount of time and you have to say it this way and da 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 da. And it's just like, it was a trip, dude. And that's why the people I saw politic, even though some of the politicking could be shitty, I understood why they were doing it because it was rough. I'm not
Mm.
saying it was right all the time. Sometimes it was. Sometimes that's good business to politic. But sometimes it's ugly too and it hurts people, takes money out of people's pocket, whatever. So it was so crazy to see those two worlds existing when you're a fan watching WWF back in the day, or WWE, and you're seeing the women. You almost think like they're treated like the stars that the dudes are, like the way the packaging looks, it looks
Yeah.
like everything's fine. What are you talking about? But when you get into hearing what's really going on, that's when it's like, dang. And that's when it's like, you know what, us ladies, we put asses, lots of asses in seats, so there needs to be that respect. And at that time I saw some people got it and some people didn't, and it was very unbalanced.
Mm. Definitely. It felt that way even just from when I was watching it. You could kind of even tell it through the TV screen in a way. I know it sounds like a stupid thing, but you certainly could. But you mentioned there during that you love being a vampire because a vampire was your character, right? But here's my take on it. I felt that your TNA character suited you better and you was having more fun in TNA working with LAX than he was as a vampire. So am I totally wrong with that, or is there an element of truth to that?
No, it's interesting because one of the infamous questions I always get asked is which one was better? And I
Mm.
can't compare the two because I was a completely different person in both characters, personally and professionally. Um, I was partying a lot in TNA, and it wasn't because I was trying to be this like crazy ass bitch. It's because my freaking feelings were hurt because I got freaking fired at WWE, not for doing a bad job, not for breaking any rules, not for like anything that should be reprimanded. And here's the other thing: how come I didn't get to go to wrestler's court? Everyone and their mom got to go to wrestler's court. How come I didn't get the chance to go to wrestler's court? You know, you hear all these
Yeah.
stories. Oh, they pull you out at midnight out of your hotel room because you got to go to wrestler's court because you effed up. How come I didn't get that? But anyways, so I was so heartbroken, so heartbroken. My soul was broken because of what went down in WWE behind the scenes.
Mm.
So when I was in TNA, I was a wreck. I was trying to make the best out of a situation. And how the LAX thing came together, that was all magical and full circle for me. And at the same time, it was a feeling of, if this is how this shit is, what's the point? Putting my body out on the line if at the end of the day you get fired for not letting someone punk you out, multiple different people punk you out. Like, no, dude. If some dude's gonna come up to me and try to tell me off to my face, he better be able to take it back. Why am I getting fired? He got in my face, so I'm gonna get right back in yours. I'm supposed to be a little bitch over there. So my mind frame was just whatever. So I was partying a lot, not taking care of myself. But what's interesting is months, even like before I even had beef with Batista, before I told, because here's the thing: people I think Batista got me fired when really he was the last straw. Before him, I told off Randy Orton and I told off Shawn Michaels. So they were probably like, this bitch needs to go because she keeps running her mouth. So when all of that was what I was trying, like before all that even happened, I was living in Kentucky because I was at OVW before I went
Yeah.
on the road as Ariel. And there was a gym there that I would always go work out at. All of us would. And I remember I'd be in the cardio room where it was called the cardio wall. And there was all these TVs on the wall, and you get to put your earbuds in or your earphones, and you pick which channel you want to listen to. And that's when I started getting familiar with TNA. Because prior to that, I never had watched it.
Mm.
But I was like, let me see TNA. Like, let me see what's going on over there. Because some of my friends at that point had been there. And so I was like, I want to support that. I want to see what they're doing. And let me tell you something. Some of my friends, I love to watch them wrestle because they are good. So I was like, yes, dude. So I really loved their product. I was like, dude, it kind of reminded me of WCW.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's awesome. And so when I saw LAX come out there with Conan at the time,
Yeah.
I was like, dude, if something ever happened with me in WWE, I would so see myself with these guys because my cousins look like that in real life. So I was like, dude, I could see myself. So I would envision the way I'd come out, that I would hold a flag, that I'd wear a sombrero, a whole 9 yards while I was doing cardio, no problems in WWE, not thinking of leaving WWE. It was just something I felt. I felt like just in case, plan B. And so it's funny because when I got fired from WWE, I got invited to Bound for Glory. And so I
Yes.
went down to Bound for Glory and wait, no, Bound for Glory was the one I was in, the TN. Okay,
Yeah.
there was a pay-per-view before Bound for Glory, like maybe a month or so before. I forget the name of it. And I was under my no compete clause still, but I just went backstage, whatever. And so I was petitioning to be a manager of Frankie Kazarian because Frankie Kazarian is one of the very few people I credit for starting me in the business and training me properly.
Yeah.
So I thought that'd be really cool for full circle. Frankie was a really good friend to me while I was in WWE because he was under contract with them for a little bit. So he kind of knew how things were. So he was really like, it was awesome. So I was like, dude, I want to manage Frankie. So I went down there with that as the plan. But then they told me, well, not in these words, but their vibe was that's a cute idea, but we're kind of thinking that you're going to be with LAX. And as soon as they said that, I knew that was my path because of, like I said, I was always preparing for that. So going back to the having fun part, because I had been practicing for months being Selena's before Selena's was even a thing, the only thing that made me feel alive and not broken was performing in that ring and performing promos and being Selena's. So what you're seeing that maybe you thought was more fun, it was me feeling like this is the only thing that I have that's making me feel good and good about myself right now. Because
Yeah.
when I'm not doing those things, my self esteem was down the toilet. I did not feel good about myself. I was so depressed. It was terrible. And I'd call Francine all the time, and she would just be like giving me a little pep talks all the time. It was rough. And the Selena's character helped me get through a lot of it. But then stuff started going down at TNA. And then that's when I was just like, oh my God. And that's when I really went off the deep end as Selena's. And that's when you see me out of control. Like there was a promo somebody sent me. I am like talking over Hector Guerrero the whole time. I'm like, that is so annoying. And the fan that sent me it, I was like, they were like, no, no, I liked it. And I was like, let the man talk. I was just so annoyed with myself. So it's just two different versions of myself, but it's interesting that you saw that you felt I was having more fun as Selena's. But
Mm.
really, what it was me not giving a crap anymore and kind of like rebelling, you know? It was me not giving a shit.
Oh, you can say that. Or you could have said fuck, it's either way, it doesn't really matter.
It was me, the Selena's was me not giving a shit. I told off Jeff Jarrett at one point. Like, I didn't care. I didn't care because I was like, if this is how it goes after my experience with WWE and how I got fired, I was like, if this is how it goes, this is who I am. Oh well.
Definitely. I mean, you told off Jeff Jarrett, who owned the company. You told off Shawn Michaels. You told off Randy Orton. You told off Batista. I mean, if you're going to get fired, you're going to get it. But, the three people in the WWE at that time that you probably didn't want to tell off, you did for whatever
You know
reason.
what? The thing with TNA though, I'll give him this.
Yeah.
Jeff Jarrett, he took it.
Yeah.
He had a conversation with me. He wasn't like yelling at me. He was like conversing with me, and I will give him that credit. And I also give him the credit he didn't get me fired. I didn't lose any I didn't get in trouble. I didn't lose any TV time, like nothing like that. It was like he and I literally, I never thought of it like this. I'm glad we had this conversation. Jeff Jarrett and I literally, because I pulled him aside, I didn't do it in front of people. You know, I never thought of it this way. This is so crazy. This is therapy, I guess, right now. This is
Maybe I
therapy
need to
session.
change my job to be a therapist.
Therapy session. No, because I don't know how to feel about Jeff Jarrett. I don't really know him, but I get this vibe from him sometimes just from seeing his stuff online. So I'm glad to have this realization right now because nothing changed professionally for me. And he wasn't weird to me. He wasn't like a jerk to me after that at work or nothing. He just was the same. I mean, I had very little interaction with him at work, but maybe that was because I didn't make a scene. I pulled him aside privately. I wasn't loud. I was just like I was upset, but I was talking with him. So you know what? There you go, Jeff Jarrett.
Jeff Jarrett has actually just signed his last professional wrestling contract with AEW, Jeff Jarrett. So
Oh,
he
is
will
that
be
right?
retiring, well, in a year or so's time, apparently. So, well, we'll see. We'll see about that. There's a couple of questions. I know there's a couple that I told you I was going to ask you before, but there's one that's just come through from one of my friends of mine, and it's an interesting one, and I think it's going to depend on genre. But obviously, there's a lot of music in wrestling. There's a lot of great, great wrestling songs, and I'm not going to label them off. But they said when you were in the wrestling bit, when you was in wrestling, what was an underrated wrestling theme that perhaps goes under the radar that should be spoken about more?
That's a good question. Under the radar. You know, even though Edge's "You Think You Know Me" song is not under the radar at any by many means, you hear that song, the arena is going to erupt,
Yeah.
erupt. But that WWF album that's green
Oh, the
with the
music.
black, yeah, the
That would
music, it has this song on there,
yeah.
dude. The full like listen to the words. You lost, you're scared. Like, this is the whole thing. Like if you pay attention to what that lady saying, whoever she is, I think that it's an awesome song. So is the No Chance in Hell from, and I know that's another thing. If you hear that in arena, people are gonna be like going nuts, whether you hate the guy or you don't, if you're booing him or if you're cheering for him. So that's what, but those are two examples of songs that theme songs that WWE has had that it goes beyond just the sound. It's
Mm.
about the lyrics that are in the song and the character that's coming out and how it all makes sense. Just like me and Kevin. It made sense.
No, the weird thing was, I was thinking that you were talking about Alter Bridge's version of Edge, but you're talking about the one prior to Alter. You're talking about one of his first themes, where it's like,
Yes.
you
You
still
think
says
you
you think
know
you know me,
me.
but it's like you are lost, you were
You're
scared, and there's another
scared.
bit in there, and I can't remember. But actually, my friend that was she's talking about vampires. My friend, one of my co-hosts on here, used to love, and I don't know if you remember it, the theme song for The Brood,
You
Gangrel and
know,
Edge,
I
and
don't, I
Christian.
just remember them coming up,
Yeah, I'm not even
but
going to try. Good. There's no lyrics to it. There's no lyrics. It's just the
No,
beat to the song.
yeah, the beat, and then you'd see Gangrel.
Yeah.
Like that was so cool, man. It was so cool. It was
It
a
was.
vibe. It was a vibe. And, you know, I just feel that new school wrestling just can never match that vibe.
I just
If
feel nowadays it's all about what's the latest sort of hip hop rap song out there. I don't feel it's like a, thing anymore. We saw this week on Raw, Travis Scott come out. He was smoking a joint live when he come out on the stage with Jey Uso, and it was
they're
like
allowed to medicate openly like that over there.
Well, I don't know if it was because of if it was the state that I can't remember the state that they were in. To be fair, and I thought when I read about it, I think it was legal or something like I don't know. But he literally Travis Scott come out, he was smoking a joint. Then Jey Uso come out, and anyway, it was more about the song and stuff like that than anything else.
I
But yeah,
am floored to hear this because here's the thing. When I was there, that's when they put into effect the you get fined if
yeah,
you like the testing.
hmm
But they did pardon at the time cannabis.
hmm
And I as I remember correctly, a couple years after that I had been gone, they put that on the list. So it's nice to hear this, even though I'm shocked, because that tells me that hopefully it's okay for their talent to partake because cannabis is just so helpful for the wrestling lifestyle. If it's like everyone's different, I get that. But for the most part, I feel the majority of people who are in the wrestling business who medicate or should medicate, it would just benefit them, not just getting high, but or CBD because it's good for so much inflammatory, mental health. Ugh, it's such a good plant. It's amazing plant. So good for them.
Yeah,
You can go
exactly.
smoke that joint.
Exactly. I mean, full disclosure, it wasn't the wrestler; it was a rapper that done it. But
But
Jey Uso,
still, they allowed
yeah,
it.
they
They
allowed it,
allowed
right?
it.
Indeed. Right. Last couple of questions before we let you go, Shelley. Right. So it is Royal Rumble season and it is WrestleMania season. I'm going to do the easy question first. John Cena is on his retirement tour, so he's retiring in December. He made a big thing this week about being the 17-time world champion, eclipsing Ric Flair's record. The question I have for you is, does he or is he going to be successful in winning the championship for the 17th time?
Who's he wrestling?
Well, that's at the moment to be disclosed. Well, it depends.
Oh,
So, like, so the two champions right now is Cody Rhodes is one champion, and there's a wrestler called Gunther who's another champion. So they're the two champions. But John is going. So John hasn't won a singles match in 5 years. Is because he
okay.
hasn't. He's been away and all that stuff. So he's coming back, final year, 16 time. The question is, does he eventually dethrone somebody to become the 17-time champion?
Dude, it can go either way because he's such an asset, you know? But then it also could be a passing of the torch moment as well, you know?
Yeah.
So it's hard to say because I could see it going either way. I could see it being like this really cool moment where it's like passing the torch, you know, especially he's all Hollywood now and it's kind of like The Rock, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like as soon as The Rock went all Hollywood, you really didn't see him except here and there, or like, you
Yeah.
know, maybe to pump something up. And that's fine. Like, I know some people poo poo on that, but it's like, dude, come on. You know, you're over there all crazy. That, like, you're watching The Rock. Like, why are you mad? Like, no, that's just how it is. They're there to help elevate. And so I feel that Cena has done so much in WWE.
Mhm.
He's ventured out and has been very successful in Hollywood. So it only makes sense because he's also been doing this for a really long time. So I'm sure not having that wear and tear mentally, physically, spiritually um, is nice to not, you know, it's hard
Yeah.
being on the road, especially when you're somebody like a John Cena in
Yeah.
the company of WWE. You're not just doing the shows. You got all, they're booking you for, so you're their golden boy. You're
Yeah.
doing everything. Like, oh my goodness. And he's been their golden boy for so freaking long, like
Yep.
so long. So I could see him totally passing the torch until he gets bored with doing other things. But I kind of don't see him getting too bored. Like I see Cena being very content, doing the projects he wants to do and just doing his thing, enjoying life, not having to worry about packing all the time and like embracing life. But then I could see him winning because he's the golden boy. He's John Cena.
And part of me thinks they want to get that record off of Ric Flair because Ric Flair was in AEW and that's a big thing. So the
And
kind of
maybe it's a torch moment of now Flair's not the one to beat, it's John Cena's record to beat.
exactly.
So we'll see, I guess.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll find out this year. Right. Obviously, Royal Rumble season now, from you may or may not know, they now do a women's Royal Rumble as well as a men's.
Right.
So they've got it into two halves now. So obviously, Royal Rumble has always been known for surprises and returns. Now, I appreciate you may not know if they're in the WWE at the minute. If you say a name and they're in it, I'll tell you. But I would like to have you to give me a name of a surprise male entrant into the Royal Rumble and a potential surprise female entrant into the women's Royal Rumble.
Man, I know you prepped me for that. But then we started talking about all kinds of other things right away, so I kind of just didn't think about it.
Should have
Where
asked
is
you.
the Royal Rumble this year?
I want to say Minneapolis, but
Minneapolis.
let me confirm that with you. I'm pretty sure it is, but I will double check. Oh, Indianapolis. Sorry, Indianapolis, Indiana. Sorry, that's where it is.
Oh, Indianapolis, Indiana. Oh,
Yeah,
no brainer. Me and Kevin Thorne, man.
there you
Me and
go.
Kevin Thorne. He's from Indianapolis.
There we go. So
That's
Kevin
it.
Ford's the Mal. To give you an idea, though, to give you a potential spoiler for those watching, and hopefully, apparently Gail Kim is in talks to do it.
Oh, that makes sense. That
That'd be
makes
cool.
sense.
That would be really cool.
That
Shelley,
makes total sense.
it does, and I hope it happens because it'd be a great moment for her. Because
It probably would. Yeah, I probably will.
I hope so. Shelley, we are out of time. It's been brilliant talking to you. Thank you so much for taking your time. Stay safe over there.
Thank
Everybody
you.
that's over there, stay safe, by the way. We look forward to seeing you and seeing you on social media and doing your stuff. Obviously, not in wrestling anymore, but good luck with what you do. Stay healthy, stay happy, and thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me. Have a good
No,
day.
you too. Guys, that has been Hitting the
Bye.
Turnbuckle podcast. She has been Shelly Martinez. I have been your host, Adam Cousins. Until next time, everybody, buckle down, stay safe, and goodbye.